If you want to live in Europe, this country may be the easiest option.
It's a popular vacation spot for Europeans because of its beautiful beaches and mountain adventures.
But it also has a low cost of living relative to the US and other places, so it might be a good place to call home too.
After spending 2 months here, we are truly stunned and we are excited to finally share it with you.
And now for the big reveal, we're in
Albania. Albania.
When Coach sang that song in the early 80s, Albania was a communist country and pretty much everything I knew about it came from that song. And if someone had told me then that I would be spending several months in Albania, I would have thought they were crazy.
But here we are and we love it.
All right, so Albania is located just north of Greece on the Adriatic Sea. So it's a good non-Schengen country for us to visit when we had to leave the zone.
Before we share all the things that make this country special, let's start with the visa option.
They have a one-year tourist visa for U.S. passport holders, but if you want to stay longer or you don't have a U.S. passport, you can apply for a residency visa.
You can apply online for the visa, but only if you are outside of Albania.
They have a long-term stay visa known as the Unique Permit. It's valid for 1 year and can be renewed up to 5 times. For U.S., EU, and Kosovo citizens, the permit is automatically valid for 5 years.
If you're going to apply as a retiree, you need to show proof of an annual pension income of at least $11,250 per year, which breaks out to be around $937 a month.
If you're a real estate investor, they don't list an amount for the property that you have to buy, but you just have to prove ownership of at least half the property for the duration of the visa.
If you're a digital nomad, you can get a visa by depositing at least $2,800 into an Albanian bank account and proving a monthly income of at least $300.
If your goal is to live in Europe, Albania is really probably the easiest option for you, especially if you're from the US.
Now let's talk about why you might want to live here.
We landed in Tirana in mid-January. The airport here is actually very small. It reminded us of the airport in Cuenca, Ecuador. It just has one runway.
When we arrive in a new country, we spend a few minutes to connect to the airport Wi-Fi so we can buy an eSIM to make sure we have mobile data when we are out exploring.
But the very first thing we do is connect to our VPNs to make sure that we're protected while we're connected to that public network, which is why we're really happy to talk about Surfshark, today's sponsor.
We've been traveling throughout Europe and using public Wi-Fi in airports, train stations, hotels, Airbnbs, restaurants, and cafes.
And we always use a VPN to protect our privacy.
Surfshark secures our data and our identity by protecting us from hackers, phishing scams, and ransomware attacks.
Surfshark never logs or collects our data, so we feel safe knowing that no one is tracking us.
And we also use Surfshark for streaming. We realize different programming is available in different countries, so we use a VPN to change our virtual location so we can watch our favorite shows everywhere we go.
Right now, Surfshark has a great offer. You get 3 extra months for free.
Surfshark also has 24/7 support. You can connect to all your devices, and there's no risk to try because they offer a 30-day money-back guarantee.
Just scan this QR code right here or check the description below for a link, or you can use promo code AAJP to get that 3 extra months for free.
And now let's talk about why we fell in love with Tirana, starting with the people. They are so nice and welcoming. They're some of the friendliest people we've met.
Yeah, they love tourists too and foreigners. They especially like Americans, which was surprising. We met a guy in the park one day who is Albanian but grew up in the U.S. and now he's moved back here. And he said, "Have you ever met anybody that likes Americans this much?" And I gotta say, no, we haven't.
People are polite and a lot of them dress very nicely, and most of them do observe the social distancing bubble that as Americans we are used to and comfortable with.
Yeah, they have a nice personal bubble that works really well for me. It's not like Latin America where they stand right next to me. I really appreciate that.
There are a lot of English speakers, especially in Tirana and the bigger cities. Maybe not so much in the small towns and rural areas, but we found English speakers in the grocery stores and the shopping stores, the dentists, restaurants, cafes, all over town.
Yeah, in fact, Amelia's hairdresser speaks fluent English. She actually lived in New York for several years, and we were asking her to help us with a few Albanian words, and she said, "Well, how long are you guys going to be here?" And we said, "I don't know, maybe a month or two." And she said, "Why are you wasting your time learning Albanian? That language is hard." She said, no one here will expect you to speak Albanian. You're fine with English. And we said, well, we really like to learn at least a few words just out of respect and so that we can make people smile during the checkout in the restaurants when we use their language.
The alphabet is similar, even though they have more letters than the English alphabet, but it made it easier for us to at least kind of understand because the letters are pronounced similarly, although the written words themselves look completely different, and the words are pretty long.
Yeah, sometimes they'll have a word that's 8 letters long and 9 of them are consonants. We're like, where are the vowels in these words? How do you pronounce it when it's like SJFTR? I have no idea how to pronounce half of the words.
It was easier for us to read the labels in the grocery store because some of them were in Italian, which was more similar to Spanish, and some of them were in English, which, well, it doesn't get much easier than that.
Yeah, we've actually found it very easy to communicate here, especially compared to the other countries we've been in Europe so far.
It is in a great location. The city is located right between the mountains and the beach.
And the international airport's easy to get to, plus you can fly to other parts of Europe. There are no flights to the U.S. or Canada, though, not direct. So if you're coming from there, you're going to have to do a layover somewhere in Europe.
Tirana is the capital city, but it is still a small city. The country itself is not overly populated. There's approximately 1.8 million people living in the country and around 500,000 people living in Tirana.
It's easy to get around, and we can walk to most things in 15 to 30 minutes.
It is somewhat pedestrian friendly. I'm saying somewhat because there is a lot of traffic. They do stop for pedestrians here, but you do still have to watch for people on their motorcycles and bicycles, and of course for cars.
Yeah, and also on the sidewalks. Just like everywhere we go now, it seems like motorcycles on the sidewalks, or they'll be going the wrong way down the bike lane. So a motorcycle going against traffic in the bike lane. So you look left for cars, but you gotta look right for motorcycles and bicycles, of course.
But we actually found it really easy to walk around in general. They have nice, clearly marked walking signs, which I really appreciate. Once you get outside of the city, there's a little bit more traffic, and we did observe some crazy driving, but inside the main areas, we felt really comfortable walking around.
Yeah, when we've talked to other Albanians, it's funny because the bad driving is often a topic of conversation amongst the other Albanians, but compared to some of the other places we've been around the world, we feel like they're not that bad, actually.
The city is pretty clean. There is not nearly as much graffiti as we've seen in other places. I actually asked my hairdresser about that, and she said it's really just not a thing here.
Yeah, what's funny is that she said that her and another older lady that lives in the neighborhood where her shop is, they saw a couple of kids spray painting a wall one day, and she's like, we asked them, what are you guys doing? Why are you doing that? And she said that they were from another country. They said they were traveling throughout Europe, tagging walls, and that she seemed very perplexed. Like, why would anybody do that? And we thought that was really interesting. And I guess it kind of goes along with why we just don't see that much of it here.
We do, however, see a lot of people out sweeping the sidewalks and keeping their front of their buildings and their businesses clean. So that is really nice. However, we also did see dumpsters kind of overflowing with trash. They just don't have the same type of trash collection that we've seen in other parts of the world.
We felt very safe during our time here. We walked all over the city day and night. We went out to watch the Chiefs game at a bar, and we didn't walk home till it was around midnight or maybe even later. And we were totally fine. We saw other single women walking alone late at night by themselves. We see families pushing their strollers, lots of grandparents pushing their grandkids in strollers or walking around. It feels like a very safe city.
And we've never felt targeted as tourists or as foreigners.
Albania is a very affordable country, especially for Europe. By European standards, we found it to be very similar to Ecuador in terms of how much we're spending on food, and even the lodging that we've looked up, the rentals and stuff are very similar to Ecuador. In fact, we're going to do an entire cost of living video about our time here, so make sure to hit that subscribe button if you want YouTube to tell you when we post that.
Tirana is a popular place for both medical and dental tourism. We see a lot of people getting cosmetic procedures done, dental work done, and apparently hair transplants are very popular here.
I broke a crown and had to go to the dentist. It was a state-of-the-art facility. Everyone spoke English there, and it was only 300 euros to replace that crown.
We've heard from the locals that the public health care is okay, but that the private health care has improved a lot.
Albania has great food. We have loved the produce that we buy. They have like little tiendas, mercados, what we call a fruteria, all over the neighborhoods and towns so that we don't have to walk very far to get our delicious produce.
And there's a couple different grocery store chains, and they have the little ones like they do all throughout Europe in the neighborhoods. But then you're going to also be able to go and find some big grocery stores in the malls like Toltani and Teg, which is a big shopping mall further outside of town, has an enormous grocery store.
We've eaten at a variety of great restaurants here. Of course, we have our Indian food at La Chakra. We have eaten there pretty much weekly since we arrived in Albania, but there's a lot of other cuisines, Greek and Italian, and pizza are all very popular here.
We actually went to a bar called Cheers, which is pretty appropriate. There's a lot of different types of pubs and bars around town, too. A lot of restaurants where you can go and sit outside. And there is even an American sports bar, and that's where we went to watch the American football playoff games. We watched the Chiefs play.
Yeah, they have American football helmets on the wall. They have a U.S. flag in there. In fact, we've seen the U.S. flag a lot since we've been here.
It is a coffee and smoking culture, so a lot of areas have outdoor seating where you can go and grab a cup of coffee or buy a bottle of water or a soda or whatever, and then also have a cigarette or a cigar. Cigars, we've seen several cigar shops around town. But you can also sit inside if you don't want to sit in with the smokers.
Yeah, apparently it's okay if you just want to go sit at a cafe and order a bottle of water. In the U.S., I'm pretty sure you get dirty looks for that. But here, it seems like a lot of people do that. There's no pressure to spend money or buy food. In fact, a lot of these cafes don't even serve food. They only serve coffee and water, maybe some other types of drinks. So it's not a tipping culture. So if you pay with cash, you can just round up to the next bill, but it's not really expected.
There's lots of good shopping here in Tirana. There are several nice malls. I really like the Toltani Mall, which is right in the heart of the city and by the castle. And there's also that Teg Mall, which has chains like Zara and Mongo and Levi's, where I went and bought a new pair of jeans. I thought it was interesting to see Levi's, although I've seen them in other parts of the world.
And there's lots of little boutique shops all throughout town, all over the neighborhoods. You can go in and buy clothes or shoes or cosmetics or pretty much anything you need. One of our favorite features of the city is the giant artificial lake in the center of town. It's like a central park, and it's huge. There's trails that run all the way around the lake and different trails. So you can pretty much walk a different trail every day of the week if you want to. There's different entry and exit points, and people love the park. It's packed on the weekends with families pushing their strollers and kids riding their bikes, and it's awesome. We love that park.
Oh my gosh, I love it so much. That is one of my absolute favorite features about this. And I love the little train that goes through too.
The history of Albania is truly fascinating. There's so much more to it than what Coach covered in that song on Cheers. And it's amazing, the communist history. And it seems to be really top of mind with people still when we've talked to Albanians. It seems to always come up in the conversation, and not with nostalgia. They're very happy with the way the country is being run now compared to what it was then. And hearing some of the stories from that time were just fascinating.
I really enjoyed just walking around and learning more about the history in general. I was very surprised to go and see a big pyramid structure in the middle of town. And it's a really popular place because you can go climb up to the top and see all the views. But it does have an interesting history. It was actually opened in 1988, so it's not that old. But it was originally a museum built to honor the communist dictator who died 3 years earlier.
Then you have the Bunk Art Museum. There's actually a lot of bunkers around town. They built thousands of them during the communist era around the country. Then there's Skanderbeg Square. It's named after the 15th century Albanian resistance leader who fought against the Ottoman Empire. And that is surrounded by monuments and the opera house and all kinds of stuff to see over there.
Yeah, I really enjoy going and walking around that whole area because it's a cultural area, it's a tourist area, and I like all of the different, there's restaurants and all sorts of stuff to experience all over the place. And it's really a fun place to go and people watch.
Then you have Tanner's Bridge. It's an 18th century stone bridge that was built during the Ottoman rule that used to kind of go outside of the town, but now it's just a walking bridge.
The nice thing about all the history is that it's all within walking distance.
Yeah, let us know in the comments below if you would like us to do a whole video about things to do in Tirana, because there's so much more to do than what we've talked about.
The best thing, at least for us, is that we experience virtually no culture shock.
Yeah, it's amazing how easy it was for us to settle in and feel right at home here. Albanian is hard, but because we're able to speak English, it really hasn't been an issue for us. We have heard from a few people that they have experienced culture shock, especially right after they first get here, but Maybe because we've been living abroad for over 6 years now, it felt comfortable to us.
Yeah, we have really felt right at home, and I'm enjoying the challenge of learning a few Albanian words. It is quite a bit different, but it's good for the brain.
We didn't actually have a lot of expectations coming to Albania. Maybe that's why we like it so much and why we've been so shocked at how much we do like it.
Yeah, I remember when we first got here, it was night. We didn't really know what was going on, and we were a little bit tired, of course, from traveling. And then the next day we went out, walked around, and we saw the history and the square and the modern buildings, and we were just stunned by the architecture and how easy it was to walk around and the cleanliness and the beautiful parks. It was amazing.
Yeah, it is interesting to see the old communist block buildings kind of sitting next to a brand new, modern, high-rise, Scandinavian design building. It's really interesting to walk around the city and see those differences.
And to see all the new construction as well. We were not expecting to see so many new buildings being built. And I know that they are really gearing up to get even more tourists coming in. They've been really targeting European tourists for quite a while, and apparently it's paying off for them. So they're obviously expecting a big growth spurt here.
As we said, Albania is a great spot if you're on a tight budget. And if you're looking for a place to retire abroad on a budget, then check out this video next.
And let us know in the comments what you think of Tirana and Albania. Are you as stunned as we are?
All right, guys, that's all we have for this video. Before you go, leave us a like, and we'll see you all in the next one. Poption!
Poption!